I've talked about the next-gen car in NASCAR long enough, so let's hear from Dale Earnhardt Jr.
I heard Jeff Gluck on the teardown this week. He's right. This cannot be okay. I feel pretty confident that NASCAR is looking at this and saying the same thing. I do not see short track racing surviving this if they don't find some solution. And it's not out of the question to think that in just a few years, the Martinsvilles and the Bristols are going to be really hanging on.
Elton Sawyer told Sirius XM this morning that we're disappointed as a company for our fans.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm disappointed too. I'm not sure why they got the results they got, why the tire did what it did and all those things. I'm not confident we know what to do about it, which sucks, man, because just 5 years ago, we were all begging for more short tracks. It was a hashtag trending on social media. And now nobody wants to go to one. Now nobody wants to see one on the schedule the next week. What a travesty.
Again, I've talked about the next-gen car enough, so let's hear from Jeff Gluck.
All right, but still, it's an elimination race. There's still things that can happen. And then you start to realize, they can't really pass. Martin Truex Jr. was running, second? He was going to have a top 3 car, gets a speeding penalty, restarts 24th, finishes 24th, according to my notes. He could not pass Colleague and Rick Ware cars with his playoffs on the line. Ty Gibbs had a problem coming back through the field. Ultimately, through several pit stops and attrition, was able to get back up to, and he ended up fading to 15th, but he got back up to 7th, 8th, or something like that. As we've seen over and over, the cars are running the same speed. It's tough to pass, track position, dirty air, whatever you want to say. And it's like, man, you can say there's solutions, whatever, but ultimately where I want to see is NASCAR just cannot settle for this as the short track product. This cannot be what is acceptable in any way. Like, this cannot be like, well, we've tried some things and this is just how it's going to be now. Like, that just cannot happen.
One final time, I've talked about the next-gen car enough, so let's hear from Denny Hamlin.
The leaders could run 15 fives, and they ended the run almost 100 laps later running like 16 20s. So 7/10 over 100 laps. Now, if you're not first, second, or third, your lap time fall off was 4/10. It's just not enough to create passing. And so, Jared, you were right that it is a car problem. We are trying to fix it with tires because that's the most economical way for us to fix it. Me as a car owner, I do not want to buy any more parts or pieces for this next-gen car. We already have a tough enough time keeping up with all the changes that we've had to do to this thing. I said years ago, we got to just design a next-gen 2.0. Take that off the record because it's just going to be way too expensive.
Now, why am I showing all of these clips is because the discourse around the next-gen car has gotten very loud recently, not from me talking about it or from other YouTubers talking about it, but now it is drivers, race teams, media personalities, legend drivers, media members, whoever it is within NASCAR, they're now talking about the next-gen car, and it seems like everyone now is on the same page. Me, you, the teams, the drivers. I'm not going to say NASCAR yet because they haven't really come out yet, but everyone involved in NASCAR seems to be on the same page with the next-gen car. And before I go any further, guys, I want to point this out and make this very clear. I am a big advocate for the next-gen car, guys. You guys know this. I've called it my baby. Like, I was so excited for this race car. I still am excited to see this race car in NASCAR. There were a lot of great things about this next-gen car that I still do very much like, and none of that I'm taking back. And just for an example, by the way, if just to make sure that you guys don't get into the nostalgia trap, because I even saw some kids talk about how 2018 was prime NASCAR, and I almost lost my head. The head loss was very high. In the previous generation of race car, you couldn't actually make contact side by side with another car because you would cut the tire of the other car, just if people forgot about that. Just for an example, I think it was Chase Elliott versus Denny Hamlin in 2017 when Elliott was getting payback for the Martinsville incident, where Denny Hamlin was able to bump and run / wreck him at Martinsville. I think Elliott basically sideswiped Hamlin and it cut Denny Hamlin's tire. Now, that's only one example. We would actually see that on a not weekly, but a bi-weekly basis with the Gen 6 car. If you make contact side by side, you're cutting somebody's tire. It basically, you couldn't really, it was really annoying to say the least. Also with the Gen 6 car, dirty air was incredibly bad at 1.5 miles and everything like that. And, it was really, really frustrating. However, with that race car, short tracks and road courses were a lot more fun. And it seemed like dirty air didn't really play that big of a part in that. Also with that race car, that was not a spec car. The Gen 6 car was not a spec car. So there was, people more dominant, like Kevin Harvick, for example. Kevin Harvick, when he went to SHR, was amazing. I say all this to remind you guys that, just because the next gen car has issues, it doesn't mean other cars were better. There were other cars, Gen 4, COT, just saying, those objectively better in dirty air. But we're going to go through Twitter and I'm going to show you guys some of the stuff that's actually been going on today. This is Cliff Daniels from about 40 minutes ago. Basically, everyone it seems like on social media is talking about the next gen car and how can we it's not that it's a bad car. It's just how can you fix the issues at the short, because Dale Earnhardt Jr. is scared about the short tracks losing race dates. We said Richmond is losing a race date to Mexico City. Again, it's not that big of a problem with me. Richmond still does have a race date, and you're able to take NASCAR to Mexico City, and I feel like the fans there are going to want to watch a NASCAR race. So again, it's not like the worst news ever. And again, it also, in terms of a product on track, road courses right now are just as bad as short tracks. So just because Richmond lost a date and we moved it to a road course doesn't mean that you're going to actually have an amazing race at Mexico City. You still need to improve this race car at these racetracks. So Cliff Daniels is talking about this. This is when I talk about, a driver being able to get up behind somebody, I talk about that all the time. There is a fantastic channel on YouTube right now actually uploading races between, I think it's 2006 and 2007, 2005, 2007 in high definition quality. If you were not born, because I'm old, I was born in 97. So that was me. What was I, 8 to 10 years old? I was primetime NASCAR fan, man. I still remember that race, Jeff Gordon versus Tony Stewart at Atlanta. I think it was 2006, but I'm not. Jeff Gordon was running the Nicorette car. That's all I remember. But that was a fantastic race. If you just don't know what that racing was like, you can go back and look at that. That's not for me to tell you that, that's what NASCAR should be. NASCAR is never going to go back to those days. That car is never going to come back. Those ratings, those amount of fans are never going to come back. It was a boom, a boom that was unprecedented, and I don't think NASCAR will ever reach again. But what we can do, as everyone part of NASCAR, the fans, the community, is you can improve on the product that you have. And one thing you notice from those older races is just how quickly things spread out, and also how you can manipulate air as the driver behind another driver, and you simply cannot do that with this race car anymore. You just can't. Not at 1.5 miles short. It is just not possible. So Cliff Daniels says, old car and current Xfinity car, the trailing car can move the leading car with air. We see that in the Xfinity series already, because the Xfinity series is, that race car is still from the Gen 6 era, and it's a good race car. And it was, by the way, better than the Gen 6 car. Nose down, back up, like we've all seen, that's how stock cars have been. The Gen 4 is the most notorious with it, I think. You look at that Gen 4 race car, it looks like a tiny little rocket ship. The back end is raised, the front end, especially when they got, what is it called? The travel, I forgot the name of it because it's been a long time, but when I think it was Ray Evernham, someone found out about how to get the dampers on the ground and everything. You basically seal the valence off. So now the 2000, I think post 2004 Gen 6 car was basically sealed to the ground, and you have that iconic look of the nose down, back up. And listen, there's a lot of other reasons why people love the nose down, back up, but we're venturing into a different category now, and I have to shut up. Gen 7 racing is nose up and back down, and again, that's a lot of you guys, not ideal. Not ideal in race cars and not ideal with other things. Gen 7 racing is nose up, back down, and trailing car cannot scoop or pack air towards the leading car bumper. That is why anytime you see, if you even can, get close enough to the guy behind or the guy in front of you, there is no bump and run, getting them loose. That doesn't exist anymore. On mile and a halfs as well. That's actually where you would see, especially the packing the air on the rear spoiler, getting your left front a little bit lower, find that clean air on the left front of the fender and be able to move that race car, get them a little bit loose, wiggle them up the track. We'd see that at mile and a halfs. And while we all say the Gen 7 car is better at mile and a halfs, I do agree that it is much worse in certain areas, and in certain areas, it's a trade-off. You can now race side by side a lot more because there's less, there's no side force, so you don't get loose, basically, if a car is literally right on your quarter panel. However, you have to run a different lane. Like, you simply cannot follow the car in front of you. So if you go to a mile and a half racetrack and it's not multi-groove, then you are in trouble. But the racing is still, you're still able to put on a good show because the cars have less horsepower. This is a spec race car, and the car is more momentum based. So because of the less horsepower, more momentum based. And the car has a lot more drag. What happens at the mile and a half tracks is you see a lot more closer racing, but when it's multi-groove, you can do that, and everyone finds the clean air and all that stuff. If you need to run the same line as the guy in front of you, you cannot do that. So I'm not saying it's bad. It's still good racing. When we go to Kansas this weekend, it's gonna be a good race, but it's very different. It's not like what the race cars, even in the Gen 6 era. Gen 6 had the problem of both. The Gen 6 car at mile and a halfs, you had the dirty air where you couldn't get to someone in front of you, but then you also had you can't race side by side because you can still get loose because the car still relies on a lot of side force, and the car is not symmetrical. This race car is symmetrical. So that's what Cliff Daniels is talking about. We can work on this to allow the trailing car to move that guy, which is what I desperately want. This is, again, we're not even talking about a bump and run. We are simply talking about running half a lane lower, a quarter of a lane lower, be able to fight through that dirty air, pack the air onto the spoiler of the car, and then move them out of the way by wiggling them, by making them uncomfortable. That is what the Intimidator button in Chase for the Cup 2005 was literally all about. He says, yes, tires and horsepower are in the equation, but we have lost that dynamic in the Gen 7 car, and that's what I agree with that. Like, you guys know me, I keep saying this. We can I'm all for it. Add horsepower back into the car. If you ask me today, right now, do you want more horsepower? I would say yes, of course. But that's not going to fix a lot of the issues that the Gen 7 car has. So we go to what Chris Gabehart was saying, and I have his tweet somewhere here. There it is. Okay, so I want to bring up Chris Gabehart. This is the crew chief of Denny Hamlin. He's been talking about this as well as him, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Denny Hamlin was talking about everything, all that stuff. Gabehart's talking about the difficulty of driving the Gen 7 car and that it doesn't showcase it well enough that they are hard to drive, and I do agree with that because you just see a lack of cautions. Now, however, when the next gen car first came in, we also did see a lot of cautions. People were spinning out, but I kind of knew this was going to happen because, guys, they learn. The crew chiefs learn, the teams learn how to make their cars go faster, and once they make their cars go faster, they gain more downforce. The cars just simply are easy to drive, and right now, you can definitely see that. Now, Ryan Burgundy, if you don't know who this is Todd Gilliland's crew chief. The 38 Cup Series team, Front Row Motorsports, Todd Gilliland's crew chief, and he had something to say today as well. This morning, this is from I want to reiterate, guys, this is not me saying it. This is not like a couch potato. You know what? I even could clarify myself as a couch potato as well. But this is someone who literally works on these cars. His main job is to make this car go as fast as possible. And this is someone directly within the industry that, and the fact that he even has to put this out on Twitter, I don't understand this. Like, there needs to be open communication between NASCAR, the race teams, and there has to be some sort of collaborated effort to understand that you need to have the best product on racetrack for your sport as a whole. There is a balance to this. This is a sport, this is a motorsport, but it is also in the business of entertainment, and we need to collaborate. Everyone has to put their egos down and collaborate on what can be the best for everybody. I don't understand why we have to have a crew chief come out onto goddamn Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and he can't even go to the head engineers of NASCAR, the head sporting directors of NASCAR, and have a 15 or 30-minute Zoom call, or go to an office and talk to them about some issues that are arising. I don't understand why we have to do this on social media. Like, I really don't get it. Like, there has to be some sort of collaborated effort. So this is what he says about what you can do to the next gen car in order to improve specifically the short tracks and the road courses, but he also points out for 1.5 mile tracks as well. And again, like I said, the short track and the road courses, the issues there, it's the same problem at the 1.5 miles. So you just are able to run different lines at the 1.5 miles. So what does he say? This is the number one thing. Remove the entire carbon floor from front to back. That is the underbody of this race car. It generates the most underbody downforce for the next gen car. It is kind of what the next gen car was, that is the base of it. That's what it was built upon. The front splitter comes from it. The rear diffuser comes from it. And so he wants to basically remove everything of that carbon floor from the front to the back, including the rear diffuser, including the splitter. So back to a very basic floor. That's what he says. And that is, in my opinion, the biggest issue right now with the next gen car is obviously everything underneath it, because that is where all the downforce is created, and the dirty air coming off the diffuser as well. Install an old school valence to the nose. Now, this has been talked about for years. This is before the next gen car. This was, ever since the COT in 2007, older school race fans have been begging for the valence to come back. This is not a new topic. And to be honest, I do not know enough between the valence and the splitter in order to tell you guys what is actually better. That is for the engineers to say. But this has been a debate that's been raging on, and obviously for the last 15 years, NASCAR has decided to go with the splitter. And so, yeah, because if you go back to a valence, they'll just seal it off, essentially. A ride height rule. So, again, the ride height rule, this is a little bit more complicated. It's not as simple as a car has to be a certain level off the ground and then that's that. Because teams have learned so much over the years, you can and I don't remember who talked about this before, but you can implement a ride height rule. That's completely fine. The team is going to find a way around it. They're going to find a way in the middle of the corner to get your car on the ground. Like they just will do that. So this is very hard to implement. You would have to literally implement it. Like visual implementation. Like you would have to have officials looking at the race car to see if the nose of the car goes too low. Like that, it's very difficult. I feel like teams would find a way around this. I would love a ride height rule, but that is a lot more complicated. It is something that I wish crew chiefs and NASCAR would talk about in tandem and try to figure out a way to get the race cars off the ground. Because if you do install an old school valence, this is for example, if you install the valence of the old school valence onto the next gen car, the crew chiefs will find a way to get around that ride height rule and put them on the ground, because it's very simple. You get the front of the car to the ground as low as possible. 900 horsepower, but that's what Cliff Daniels was talking about, by the way, getting the front of the car to the ground. 900 horsepower. Nothing else to say. It's just as simple as removing a tapered spacer. NASCAR's not been wanting to do it. They don't want to say what the reasons are. So it could be whether they want the new manufacturer that they've been talking about for the last amount of years. Again, there is not enough collaboration. There's not enough communication of what NASCAR actually wants and the reason why they do not want to put more horsepower in this race car. It seems like literally everybody is for it, just to try it, and for some reason they just don't want to do that. Reduce camber by 2 degrees on all corners. We're going to come to that in a second. That is very much a crew chief term. And then option tires, that is very controversial amongst everyone, and I'm glad he put that at the end, because I think everything above it is a lot more important, to be honest, when it comes to the race car. Option tires, you could be for it, you could be against it. I honestly don't have an opinion on this. You can use it if you want. It's fine. It adds another strategy element into racing if you want to use it. And then he asked how much it would cost race team, because Denny Hamlin is an owner. And then he talks about the reduced cambers right here. So reduced cambers would keep teams using more of the tire, and durability would greatly increase. What camber does is it angles the tire. So you want a negative camber on the right front, because if you have a negative camber on the right front, you're going to be able to turn. You have more front end turn on the race car. However, it angles the tire, so more of the tire actually gets off of the racetrack. So he's saying if you reduce the cambers, you are forced to have more of the tire contacted with the racetrack. Durability would greatly increase. And the reason why I'm guessing he would want that is that then Goodyear can go ahead and make a softer tire, which is why he's talking about the option tires. If I'm wrong about that, you guys could let me know, but I think that's what it's about. If you have more of the tire on the racetrack, you can then run a softer tire, which adds more wear, and then you have the option tire. That's what he's looking for. The diffuser generates big downforce, but so doesn't the splitter. Remove them both reduces downforce, which will also help tire durability and the option to run tires. And again, yeah, that's what I would want. I want the diffuser gone. I want the splitter gone. I want literally the entire underbody. Just go to the most basic underbody you could think of. Like, just don't try not to put everything under the race car. Go back to putting stuff on top of the race car and just try to figure out how it can work. And then you obviously have to go back to the horsepower as well, because if you reduce all this downforce, it will play a part in drag and everything like that. So it's an equation. You have to work on it. It has to be tested. Does NASCAR want to invest the money into this? That is another question. So there's so much to unpack. I'm just really glad that this conversation is finally coming out, and I don't have to talk about this literally, because you guys know me. I don't want to complain, man. That's not what I want. I just want what's best for NASCAR, and obviously the next gen car has issues. So you can't just ignore it. You gotta fix it. And I'm glad that this conversation is happening. But again, honestly, the point of this video is to showcase to you guys what is going on social media and how I'm very happy that people within the industry are now talking about this. But also, they gotta talk together. Like, NASCAR has to work with their teams and drivers. It's becoming a little bit of an issue. You guys got to work together. It has to be a collaborative effort, because at the end of the day, you both are part of the same product. NASCAR, you are the private owners and you host the events and you put on the show, but there's no show without all the crew chiefs and all the crew members and all the engineers and all the fabricators and everyone that works incredibly hard on all these race teams that invest so much money, and they really don't make a lot of money anyways. The team owners don't make a lot of money, and you have to work endless on sponsors. Everyone's part of this. The drivers are part of it. The fans are part of it. There has to be a collaborative effort, because at the end of the day, it's entertainment. Like, if you don't have fans, you don't have a sport. Like, it's that simple. If the NBA doesn't have fans, that's not a sport. If American football doesn't have fans, it's not a sport. Like, I can go watch I don't know, what sport? I'm trying to think of a sport. I could go watch disc golf. Disc golf is very popular among some people, but disc golf is never going to make a lot of money because there's not a lot of fans about it. You just got some people throwing discs in the middle of the woods, and there's like 5 people watching. You need to be able to work together, because if you don't, then at the end of the day, everyone's just hurting from it. It has to be some collaboration. There has to be some togetherness to understand, okay, like, do we have a problem here? We analyze the problem, and then we work together to solve the problem. And NASCAR and the race teams and everyone, we got to work on this. So I would really like to see NASCAR actually, whoever it might be, whether it be Elton Sawyer, whether it be Steve Phelps, just come out to the world, to the fans and to the teams and the drivers, and just say, hey, we hear you. We're going to try and work on this. I would really like that after the season, of course. Not right now, but like once the season is over in November, come out and say, like, yes, I understand that we have these issues right now in terms of the short track product and the road courses and the race car. We understand that, and we're going to try and work on it, and that work is going to start, and it has started, and we're trying to figure it out. That'd be transparent, and I'd really enjoy that. So what do you guys think about the next-gen car issues that NASCAR is currently suffering with? And yeah, what do you think of everything that is said? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.